Hi, my name is Rosia Silva Medina. I'm in my last year of English pedagogy at the Catholic University of Concepcion, and this is my final assessment that is called Hito Final Reflection. For this, I need you to contextualize and take into account the school and the context in which I was inserted to during this whole year. To start, we need to understand the context in which I was inserted to. I was working for a whole year in a school called Juan Martínez de Rosas. Here we have a photo of it, located at the center of Concepcion. It has a total amount of 165 students, and in terms of the building, it is a big building with two wings. The first wing that is in the front has the rooms from primero medio to cuarto medio. Has a computer lab, science lab, bathrooms, the principal office, teachers' room, and other features. Then we have at the back the second wing that has the classrooms of séptimo básico and octavo básico, has the kitchen, music and art room, and a library. And also we have a playground and a gym. So having that into account, we can talk about the students that I choose to work with that are two primeros medios. Some of their characteristics are that most of my students are foreigners, especially from Venezuela. A lot of them are soccer players and artists, and they dedicate to this in a professional way. In terms of their age, it varies between 15 to 17 years old, and their level of English, according to the MCER, is pre-A1. So having that into consideration, we can talk about the beginning of the process of creating this unit. And for that, we needed to apply one instrument that is the needs analysis. This instrument helped me to recollect information about different aspects of my students that will help me in the creation process of this whole unit. Some of the information that I could recollect was personal information, goals in terms of their education, their hobbies, their preferences in terms of the language, English, about the methodology, activities and classes, the skills, etc., and different suggestions for the class. Here we have a photo of what the needs analysis was and what the students needed to complete. And having the answers of this, I could start developing and creating the unit. So for that, I'm going to show you all the aims that were worked during the unit that is called Traditions and Festivities. The first unit was students will be able to list and reproduce different traditions and festivities in an oral format. Second, we have students will be able to comprehend a video about pranks and April's Fool Day. Third, students will be able to describe a celebration or tradition in a written form. And finally, students will be able to create and present a unique festivity, applying vocabulary, cultural concepts, and creativity in the format and details of the celebration. So these were all the aims that were worked during the last unit of the year. So now we can talk about the different content and material used during the lessons. So in terms of the material, we can talk about that everything was prepared according to the preferences and goals that the students expressed in the needs analysis that I showed at the beginning. Therefore, most of the students express that they would like to have more dynamic activities and in which they can develop different skills and creativity. So here I have some examples of what I did. Students will have to search and talk about their favorite traditions, or in the case of one specific student, that he decided to talk about a tradition of his country. Students will be able to practice the different skills, as I mentioned before, not only the reading one that they were used to develop a lot during the English classes of the head teacher. And finally, we did a lot of activities outside of the classroom in order for the students to move their bodies, um, and we did a lot of games, obviously with pedagogical purpose, but this helps to develop collaborative work, and students will have the opportunity to talk with other classmates that they don't get along with, and I will feel more freely, and they will feel comfortable in an environment that it was not only the classroom. Moving on, we can talk about the differentiation strategies. I had to do some adaptations in order for all my students to understand not only the lessons but also the activities, the instructions, obviously, and also the aims of the lessons. An important strategy was that an important adaptation was that I do not only talk in English during the whole lesson. I had to talk in English first and then translate it to Spanish for the students to understand and complete different activities and comprehend the content and information that I was um, providing for them. Students will have the possibility to interact orally or in written form. Uh, some of them feel more comfortable writing than talking, so they will have the possibility to choose according to how they feel better and comfortable with. And finally, as I mentioned before, classes and activities will be able to develop outside of the classroom, depending on the day and the mood of my students. In terms of the assessment, it's important to clarify that we need at least 2 assessments per unit. Then we ponderate them and we have the final mark for the whole unit. For the case of traditions and festivities, students made an amount of 3 different assessments in which they were able to develop creativity, collaborative work, and diverse skills such as listening and speaking, and not only reading and writing. Additionally, I take into account their participation and progress class to class due to different aspects that I'm going to mention later on. In the case of cultural and linguistic considerations, I'm going to mention 2 main factors um, that I think that are the most important ones. The first is, as I already mentioned, different in different opportunities. Most of my students were foreigners, so the language was something important, and additionally, the age. I am not that old. I'm very close to their age, but some of my students use a lot of words and expressions that I don't know, so I had to do a lot of investigation, and I had to understand the meaning of them in order for me to use them, to feel close to them, and create this comfortable environment in which we could create this relation between teacher and a student, and student teacher, obviously. Finally, we have the reflection and improvements. In terms of reflection about the units, I'm going to mention these 3 main aspects that are we were really successful in terms of the participation of the students. It increased a lot. Additionally, they felt comfortable at the moment of using the language, not only in the written form, but especially orally. That it was something really precious for me. And number 3 is that they are more interested in the learning process. I was able to work not only through 1 unit, but 2 units with them. So I was able to see this improvement from unit 3 to unit 4, in which they feel comfortable and they were able to use the language more freely. In terms of improvements, I think that I need to be more flexible on how I develop the classes. By the end of the semester, I was able to practice this. I provided more space and I was more flexible in terms of time and in format. Students were able to be part of the class, like being in the front of the class, participating in the board, so they feel more comfortable with their learning process, as I mentioned before. And some continuous improvements and some important aspects that I learned during this whole practice, during this whole year, were especially three. The importance of the communication and connection with the students. I understood that uh, sometimes, or maybe always, it's important to prioritize the self being of the students and understand the situations that they go through in order to help them not only with their personal lives and how they feel, but also with their education, making their experience at school more comfortable and enjoyable. I also learned that each student is a whole different world. They were able to talk to me and they feel comfortable with me. So they told me a lot about their lives so I could understood how they feel, what they were like that during the classes or outside the classes. And no matter who they are or what they do, they deserve an opportunity to learn and change. And finally, the importance of the co-workers environment. Each of the teachers that I had the opportunity to work with it taught me something about content or how to be a better human through this profession, and the importance, as I already mentioned here, of not only teaching content but teaching values and providing them a safe space in which they can develop their skills, their abilities, but also to feel free to talk and ask for help when it's necessary. And that is everything. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.